Hi, everybody, and welcome back to Tuesday Tips. As always, I'm Michael Barber, and welcome to the Grow Schools channel. We are really excited for a guest that I know all of you probably recognize, and that's Nina Rees, of course, the former president and CEO of the National Alliance of Public Charter Schools. Nina, we're super excited to have you here on Tuesday Tips. Welcome in. How you doing?
I'm doing great. Thanks for having me.
Of course. Well, we're, as I mentioned, jazzed to have Nina join us for a couple questions on the state of enrollment marketing and just what's happening around the education and school choice space. And then I hope you'll hang tight till the end of the conversation because we've got a nice announcement for a summit that's coming up that we would love to invite all of our school leaders to and fans of the Tuesday Tip Show. But as always, we spend about 10 to 15 minutes on the biggest challenges that are facing school leaders. And we will hop right into the questions with Nina. Nina, first, wanted to ask you just in general your thoughts on where the current state is for enrollment for charter schools across the U.S. What are you seeing and hearing out there?
Well, thanks again for having me. And this is a great time to have this conversation because the National Alliance just released the latest round of enrollment data from the 23-24 school year. And what they found was that enrollment in charter schools has continued to grow since the pandemic. In fact, in this last report, they noticed 83,000 new students enrolling in charter schools, while district schools lost roughly 275,000 students in the last school year.
Yeah, it's some incredible analysis that the National Alliance has done. And if you have not seen that report, you can just hop over to publiccharters.org and into the news section. You can take a look at all those details. I'm really fascinated, Nita, because when we're at conferences, whether it is at the national conference every year or whether we're at the state association conferences, we always ask our school leaders who are coming up to grab our socks or a tchotchke or two, what is their biggest challenge? And year after year, I would say, as we've gotten into the pandemic and as we've come out of the pandemic, enrollment marketing is always one of those challenges. But this report seems to say, hey, choice is still a major influencing factor for parents and families out there, and that charter schools are a top choice. So, as you think about, sort of the demand for charters as well, and sort of that challenge that they're seeing, what are you seeing as far as demand for charter schools, and where does sort of enrollment fit into that picture for them?
Well, demand is continuing to grow. I mean, when I just mentioned 275,000 students left the district-run system and only 83,000 ended up in charter schools, a lot of them are going somewhere else. And so there is certainly a growing demand for options. And if you had more charter schools and more communities, you'd be able to meet that demand. In terms of trends, the other thing the report highlighted was the growing number of Hispanic students who are interested in the charter space. And that's a population that the charter sector has certainly paid a lot of attention to. I mean, charters are created usually in markets where there is demand. If they weren't able to meet the demand, they wouldn't be able to keep their doors open. But I would say that the key takeaway for me, certainly after looking at this report, is that if you really want to expand options in a place that has been a tried and tested space, it is in the charter school space. And certainly the private choice efforts are expanding in a number of states, and you're seeing a lot of interest in those options. But the supply side of that ledger is not clear to me. I don't know how many of these private schools are able to scale and meet the needs of their families in the same way that charters have been able to scale in the communities that they're serving.
Yeah, such an important insight about how and who charters are serving. Certainly, we know the studies, that the majority of students that are being served by charter schools are largely Black and brown populations. Latinos obviously falling into that categorization, and certainly we've seen charter schools just do have enormous impacts on those populations of students. I want to turn really quickly to the economic pressures that public education is facing. We've obviously just come through this pandemic period where charters as well as public schools were, charter and public schools were flush with economic cash from infusions from the federal government, whether it's ESSERs and the like, and state funds certainly over the last few years. That is largely changing. I'm wondering if you're hearing from school leaders about how they're navigating these financial challenges while maintaining enrollment and the quality of education that they've served up over the last few years.
Yeah, that's a great question. Look, I mean, this money was always supposed to be temporary, and schools knew that it wasn't a permanent influx of funding that would be sustained through formula grants. But the reality is that in order to educate students, you do need to have individuals in the classroom. And so to the extent they hired additional FTEs or individuals who are on the payroll, unfortunately, I don't know where the additional dollars are going to come from in the near term. But the other thing about charter schools that makes them different from public schools and to some extent from private schools is that they have always been used to operating with less funding. On average, they receive only 75 cents of every dollar that follows kids to public schools. And that number fluctuates, as you know, in states depending on the community that you're in. So in that respect, they're used to operating with quality and doing more with less. And so in that respect, I think they're more agile and able to meet the changing needs that are about to hit them with the fiscal cliff. Those schools that made investments in their infrastructure through technology in particular are poised to navigate this next phase much better. And there are certainly some lessons out of those schools that I hope that the larger public school system can emulate.
Yeah, whether it's, just dollar for dollar operating expenses or whether the dollars are going into their facilities, charters are uniquely poised to handle budget challenges given just how fewer cents they get on the dollar compared to their public school colleagues, if you will, for sure. I want to stay on this theme of just being resilient through budget challenges. Can you talk about how you've seen schools face those challenges over, you've been around school choice your entire career. And watched the movement, particularly as you led the Alliance. What are some examples through those years that you've seen schools handle budget constraints in moments where there are not dollars to be had to, grow resources and grow programs for their schools?
Well, as I mentioned earlier, because they are used to operating with quality, with fewer resources. I don't think this new medium is any different than what they've been used to over time. But I was just visiting a school called Oakmont in Ohio last week. They have 17 campuses in Ohio. They serve a student population that's often left behind by the traditional system. These are students who need their high school degrees in order either to go to college or to go into jobs. And they also have a great career placement service in that school. And I think one of the things that you see in a school like that in particular is, the resilience really comes with the people that you're serving and the needs that that those students bring to the school. And so the added burden that is placed on schools like that, which are also serving a population that is often left behind, is kind of all the resilience that you need in order to function and to not let the day-to-day challenges that politics certainly and fiscal issues bring to the table. The other thing I'll just say also is charter schools are able to bring donations from private entities and foundations in a much faster and more efficient way than traditional schools have. And there are a lot of philanthropic entities that have shown interest in supporting charter schools, especially those that are doing well academically, that are raising student achievement, closing the achievement gap, and doing something innovative in order to serve the needs of their community, and also those that are sharing those innovations with the larger public school system.
Yeah, such a good example from the Oakmont education team, from an old friend. I think both of us count as a friend. That would be Chris Worrell, of course, over on their team. So good to see their name mentioned as always.
Yes.
Well, hey, we keep these Tuesday Tips conversations to about 10 minutes, and we're just about the 9-minute mark. And we wanted to take a moment just to announce a big summit that we're putting together with a few additional organizations that's happening on Friday, November 8th. That would be our Grow Enrollment Summit, and Nina is going to be joining us to keynote that conversation. We're going to be diving into all things enrollment marketing as we tackle this challenge that school leaders are facing, of course, as more parents and families make a choice to take their kids to a different educational environment. Schools have got to be poised to capitalize on those opportunities. So we are doing a half-day summit along with the teams, I should say, from EnrollStream and vChief, to bring you not only a great conversation with Nina, but also another great conversation with 7 experts and potentially more. We're still confirming a few speakers on all things enrollment marketing. So we're really happy to have Nina keynoting that conversation for us. We'll have her for almost a full hour talking all things enrollment. We're really excited to have you there, Nina. Any thoughts on that summit before I wrap us up today?
No, I'm excited. This is my first summit, so I'm excited to be invited, and I'm excited to see, what questions you ask me and how I can best serve you. I've been a big fan of Grow Schools, formerly Charter School Capital, in my time at the National Alliance, and really appreciate all the work that this organization has done over time and continues to do, especially at this juncture.
Yeah, it's a good moment to be having these conversations, and we appreciate the partnership and the conversation you're going to bring on Friday, November 8th. As mentioned, we kick off at 9 a.m. Pacific with a conversation with Nina, and it is completely free. Feel free to join us. You can head over to growenrollmentsummit.com. That's growenrollmentsummit.com. Click the register button. We just asked for a few pieces of information. Promise no selling or spam from you sharing that information. And we are offering continuing education credits for those who would like to receive them. It's a half-day summit running for about 4 hours, where again, we'll have Nina kicking us off, as well as 7 potentially more experts on all things from brand and design, social media, retention, how to select partners for enrollment marketing activities, and more conversations as well. So we look forward to seeing you there. And with that, I'll say a big thanks to Nina for joining us on this episode of Tuesday Tips, and we will see you next week. Thanks again, Nina.
Thank you.
Take care.
Bye.